Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending where you are. Welcome to the third talk of our IQSA-AIAT talk series on Quranic Studies in Indonesia. Thank you so much for joining in. Today, our speaker is Dr. Ahmad Rafiq. Dr. Ahmad Rafiq is an associate professor at Sunan Kalijaga State Islamic University. He teaches at the department at the Quranic Studies program and the doctoral program at the university. He is also the secretary of Indonesian Qur'anic Studies Association. In fact, he is the one who designed our logo, which we are really proud of. He graduated from Temple University. He studied under Professor Khalid Blankenship, and he is an authority, or I would say he is the most authoritative scholar when we speak about the study of the Quran in everyday life, or the lived Quran, or the living Quran. And today he's going to the topic of his talk is precisely about that, and the title is Tafā'ul as a non-Arabic speaking Muslim strategy of reading the Quran. In bahasa Indonesia, Tafā'ul sebagai strategi pembacaan Al-Qur'an Muslim, bukan penutur Arab. I believe it's part of his PhD dissertation that he has elaborated. Without further ado, Pak Rafiq, the floor is yours. You have 20-30 minutes to present, and then we'll have a question and answer. And everyone, if you have comments, questions along the presentation, please do write in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lien. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for IQSA who invite us to collaborate in this program. To Johanna, David, and everybody, and thank you also Sairon, who in his busy life, not busy days, because he, not days, it's always his life. It's looks very busy, or still joining us in the program. Let me make it. Okay, here it is. This actually, pardon? Okay, this is actually part of my dissertation project in 2014. As Lien said, I work with Johanna Blankenship, but I develop it in some cases, in some issues, but the main issue is actually I got it from.
We have problems understanding you.
The main project.
I'm sorry, Pak Rafiq. You're frozen.
Pardon? I am frozen?
Yes, like delayed.
Sound quality is very bad. Maybe could you try switching off your camera? Maybe it works better that way.
Okay, let me see. If I move to. So, hopefully,
Bismillah, hopefully.
Bismillah, and then I'll turn off my camera. Hopefully, it will. Sorry, let me turn. Yeah, okay. Where is? Let me turn off my camera. Stop video. Okay. Thank you, Lien, and thank you, everybody. Hopefully, it's getting better now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I couldn't do much more. Okay, everybody can hear my voice, right? Okay, let me start that. As Lien said, that it is part of my dissertation project in 2014. The main issues at the time was on the
the reception of the Quran in Indonesia, in which I explored the place of the Quran in an Arabic-speaking community. So the issues of how Indonesian who are non-Arabic and perceive the Quran in Arabic. So at the time, I did a kind of the ethnographic survey at the time in one of the community in Indonesia, especially in Borneo, which has a very different different types of being Muslim in relation to the issues of the Quranic studies. If we compare to other area like Sumatra, Java, or Sulawesi, in which we will have more discussion about the Quranic studies in those areas later from other speakers. Because in this area, even though it's a very big area, and the area, the Sultanate in that area also has been converted to Islam in 16th centuries, in 15 something, in the 16th centuries, and even in the 18th centuries, these areas also was famous for one of his prominent scholar, Islamic scholar, which is Sheikh Muhammad Arshad Al-Banjari, who has who went to study in the Mecca in the Middle East with Abdul Samad Al-Falimbani, Dawud Al-Fattani. That's the same group. But unlike the Sumatra, the Muslim scholar in Sumatra, Java, and Sulawesi, and even eastern part of Indonesia, in which we could find some book of tafsir of the Quran, in this area we couldn't find it. So none of the Muslim scholar in that area produced the tafsir of the Quran. So the way they perceive the Quran is by take it, translate it, or interpret it in order to explain some, especially the legal issues or the theological issues. So the only way for us to understand for how they perceive the Quran or interact with the Quran is from the fiqh book or the theological book, and later some tasawwuf book, but we couldn't find any tafsir works in that area. That's the community in which this studies actually taken place, has been taken place. So let me start with the general issues, right? Later, I know that's Dr. Pink and Professor Pinks and Professor Gorka, especially in the article by Andreas Gorka, talk about redefining the border of tafsir, in which he put the three new areas, that is light exegesis, regional particularities, and the oral tafsirs. Okay, I will not talk more about it. I just want to emphasize about the possible existence of the light exegesis in this non-Arabic speaking Muslim communities. And the second issue that I would like to highlight later is about the non-literate receptions. Sandegir, in the Holy Book on Comparative Perspective, he talked about how people, non-literate people, when they perceive the Holy Book or the Scripture, they will emphasize more on the performative functions of the text rather than the informative one. So we will see. I will see later about the issues of Tafā'ul. And the last, that's hadith narrated by Ahmad ibn Hanbal, when in one of his dream, he got in his dream he got the issues of reciting the Quran as much as possible, and then he asked the angels or God. He asked God at the time, the prophet, do we need to understand the meaning or not? And when we recite the Quran as much as possible, and the prophet says, no, with the meaning or without the meaning. with the meaning or without the meaning. The point is recite the Quran as much as possible. That's theoretical perspective to some extent influence or shaped shapes the way those who has a limited proficiency in Arabic to perceive the Quran in Arabic. Okay, and then let me start from the issues of the levels of Muslim community in that area. With the Quranic text, there are two levels. The first level is Muslim scholars, that's Kiai. If I might borrow the what is girls terminology when girls talk about the Kiai in Java, he call it when he call it as cultural broker. For the Muslim scholars like a Kiai, or in the area where I did my research, they call it Tuan Guru or Muallim, Tuan Guru or Muallim. The Muslim scholar, they have direct access to the Quranic text, which means to understand the meaning from the original language. But other than the Muslim scholar, there are the community who are mostly a non-Arabic speaking Muslim community. I call it the NESMC to make it simple. That they understand Arabic, they recite the Quran in Arabic, but they have not such a proficiency in Arabic to understand the languages of the Quran. So all of their understanding of the Quran rely mostly on the Muslim scholars. So that the way Muslim scholars introduce the Quran to them is very important, play the important role to construct the way they perceive the Quran later. Okay, there are at least two main characteristics of non-Arabic Muslim community in my study. The first, of course, Arabic is not their mother tongue, so the main language that's contrasting meaning for them is bahasa. So it means that even though they recite the Arabic Quran, but the way they construct the meaning is bahasa Indonesia. So we will find it later. It will shape the receptions of the Quran, or the kinds of Tafā'ul that they do it, because even though they say they say the sounds of the Quran in Arabic, but the meaning they construct is the meaning in Indonesia, which is not necessarily the translations. Which is sometimes they associate the sounds without the meaning. And the second, Arabic sounds and letters of the Quran for them are theologically perceived before linguistically one. So they perceive it as theological language. To perceive it in Arabic is more on the theological position rather than in linguistic positions. So that for them to understand the meaning in Arabic is secondary before the theological perceptions. And now with such position, and then they do Tafā'ul. Sorry, Lien, I corrected. It's not Tafā'ul, but Tafā'ul from Al-Fa'lu. Al-Fa'lu. It's a Hamza.
Tafā'ul. Yeah, it's Hamza.
Yeah, Tafā'ul. Tafā'ul. Tafā'ul is, we can translate it as good omen or a signs of favorable things, which leads to motivations and encouragement. Encouragement. So, like if we see from what is you can say like in Lisan al-Arab. In the Lisan al-Arab, for example, Ibn Manzur give the example of the Tafā'ul, the story of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when Ali came out from the Prophet Muhammad house when the Prophet Muhammad was in the what is acute illnesses, and he said that he will be cured. He will be cured. So Ali doesn't say it's about the illnesses of the Prophet Muhammad, but say he'll be okay. He'll be okay. It's a kind of the Tafā'ul, rather than saying so he is in a very acute illnesses. Okay, that's Tafā'ul. Tafā'ul is kind of the encouragement, and Tafā'ul bil Qur'an normatively is actually means getting the meaning or message of the Quran as the motivating statements. So in the Arabic literature, so we could find some information of Tafā'ul bil Qur'an. So what is meant by Tafā'ul bil Qur'an is one read the Quran and then understanding the meaning, and then through the meaning they got the motivations to do something, to do like say let's say for example, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. That Allah will not change the destiny of ones until they change themselves. And then the people encourage and be getting motivated to do something actively. That's normatively, but we will see for non-Arabic speaking community, they don't have such tools to get the meaning. So but they are interacting with the Arabic Quran, but they don't have enough tools to get it normatively, to get directly to the Quran. The only possible thing for them is rely on the Muslim scholars, and other things. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Annahu sallallahu alaihi wasallam yuhibbul fa'la wa yukrihu at-tiyarah." So in the Arabic traditions, they Tafā'ul is the opposition the opposition of at-tiyarah. At-tiyarah means something that's unfavorable, discouraging. So by like get the signs from the sounds of bird, by the weather, by the changing of the weather, in which then people get, oh, it will be something bad happened. That at-tiyarah. But the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in favor of al-fa'lu. Al-fa'lu, it means the favorable signs, encouraging so with such oppositions between al-fa'lu and at-tiyarah, which the letter can be Tafā'ul. Tafā'ul then is not a passive practice in which people wait for the sign following it, such as in tiyarah. It is Tafā'ul is actually an active practice, as people deliberately decide and choose a sign that they are in favor in the situation they are facing. Okay, so the Quran has its place in this deliberate choice of Tafā'ul. So, but again, normatively, this active practice is by getting the meaning directly from the Quran. What about for those who have no proficiency of the Arabic? So, in short, I may say that there are four kinds of Tafā'ul for non-Arabic Muslim community in Indonesia, with such limited proficiency and the existence of the Muslim scholar as the first level who has direct contacts with the Arabic Quran. The first, some of them has doing Tafā'ul with the fragmented sounds and words of the Quran. What I mean by the fragmented sounds, as I said before, even though they read the Quran in Arabic, but they construct the meaning in Bahasa, which is not necessarily the translations of the translations of the Arabic the Arabic Quran. So with such situation, they may cut one word and even sounds of the Quran, then they put the meaning in Indonesia to encourage themselves to get the favorable things. I get the case, for example, I usually give this example, and I said it's also in my PhD thesis on this. But let's say, for example, in that area, one of the men who usually that's a local clerics who usually help one have the prospective mother in delivery to give birth. The man, who usually provide water for the prospective mother, and then the mother will drink it, and then suddenly Lien drink water. that's okay. That's not on purpose, I know. The mother will drink the water, and then half of the water, and the other half they will pour it on the belly of the prospective mother, and then it will help the mother to give birth easily. And then when I asked the man, what did you do with the water? And then he actually at the very beginning seems to be reluctant, even he said it. I recite the Surah Al-Fatiha to the water, and then I recite the Surah At-Takathur. So I start to thinking, for Fatiha, of course, there is some narration from the Prophet Muhammad about the excellences of the Surah Al-Fatiha. But what is the reason between Surah At-Takathur with the giving birth? And then he said, when recite Surah Al-Takathur, I recite Alhaakumut Takathur, and then he recite some formula in the local language. Semoga bayinya keluar mendusur. Mendusur is the local language. I hope the baby will come out mendusur. Mendusur means come out easily. So he appropriated the sound takathur with the local sounds of mendusur, which mean easily, to help the prospective mother to giving birth easily. So he doing Tafā'ul with the fragmented sounds or words of the Quran. And the second one is Tafā'ul with the selected chapter or verses of the Quran. So in Indonesia in general, and also in the area where I did my research, there are some tradition. If a woman in pregnancy, the woman, the lady will have a kinds of rituals, daily rituals, reciting Surah to Maryam and Surah to Yusuf every day, in hope that they can have kinds of good boy or daughter, a good boy or daughter, as the family of Imran has Maryam, and as Yusuf has grow up. So the mother has a kinds of the favorable things of having child like Maryam, of like Yusuf, by reciting Surah to Yusuf every day. But regardless of the understandings of the verses of the verses, another issues also, like for example, if having sorry, I don't have a timer here, because Lien, you said to me
you have 10 minutes.
Okay, that's
7
okay.
until 10 minutes. Yeah.
I left only two slides. I left only two slides. Okay. Another example in the selected chapters or verses of the Quran, and that's it. There's in the moments of aqiqah, in the moment of aqiqah. So when mother already gave birth, and then they have a kinds of the ritual to name the baby. The family will invite qari. When they call qari, it means as the professional reciters of the Quran. It's not the common reciter of the Quran who can recite the Quran melodically. And at the moment they call it as tasmiyah. Tasmiyah means a giving name. Giving name. They call the ritual as tasmiyah. So in the ritual of tasmiyah, the qari otherwise, all the qari already knows what kinds of the verses of the Quran they should recite. they will recite the verses of chapter Ali Imran, verse 31 to 37, which is actually talk about about the family of Imran, the birth of Maryam. Inna Allah astafa Adam wa Nuha wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alamin dhurriyatan ba'daha min ba'd wallahu sami'un alim. It is the story of the family of Imran having Maryam. But there is one point in the verses said, wa inni sammaytuha Maryam, and indeed I give her name Maryam. And then after that, the cleric who lead the ritual will imitate the wording by saying to the baby, hey baby, sammaynaka blah blah blah, we name you blah 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 blah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the verses about the family of Imran giving name of Mary, giving the name of Mary, with the hope that they can have the daughter. Then interestingly, they don't think about the gender in this issue. Regardless of the gender of the baby, it is men or women, they always recite the same verses. Until the last 10 years, I suppose, I met one of the Qari, and I asked him about what kind of verses that you recite during the ritual of Aqiqah or Tasmiyah. And he said, oh, depend on the gender. If the baby is a daughter, I will recite that we usually recite. But if the baby is son, boy, so then I will recite the beginning of surah to surah of the beginning. Kaf ha ya ain dzikru rahmati rabbika 'abdahu Zakaria. So I forgot it. What verse is it? Kaf ha ya ain sad. Surah to Maryam. The beginning of Surah to Maryam. The beginning of Surah to Maryam about the birth of Yahya. The birth of Yahya, because the gender is the gender is boy. But we can see it here. The letter Qari try to relate the practice of reciting the verses with the meaning of the verses and the gender of the baby. While the old Qaris, regardless of the gender, they always recite Surah to Ali Imran, verses 31 to 37. The questions, why they stick on the verses? The answer is simple for them, because the book said in the moment of Tasmiyah, we should recite that. We should recite. And the book that they said is not the Qur'anic Tafsir. The book that they refer is I'anatul Talibin. That's the fiqh book. That's the legal, the fiqh book, which is actually talk about the hukum, the hukum, the hukum al-aqiqah. That's the hukum of aqiqah. But they refer it as the practice of the tasmiyah. And the third is Tafā'ul, with the recitations of the entire Quran. So that's the long issues. But let me say it in short. And then in Indonesia they have, and some other parts of the world also. I remember when I present this, some of our brother from Nigeria raised his hand and said, "Oh, we have such ritual also." Yeah, which is the ritual of Khatmil Quran, reciting the entire Quran for certain purpose, for certain purpose. They refer to the some of the narration from the Prophet Muhammad and some of the companion, and even some of the tabi'in about the excellences of having invocation to God, praying to God during the ends of reciting of the whole Quran. And it's create many rituals. So for those who have who have certain needs or hajat, so they may gather people to recite the Quran together, and at the end, and then they will do any prayer to any prayer to get the excellences of the reciting the whole Quran. And the last is Tafā'ul, with the script of and tablet or mushaf of the Quran. So regardless of the meaning, regardless of the recitation, now for them if they want to, if they encourage themselves by having the mushaf, by placing the mushaf in the highest place, even by bringing the mushaf or the tablet everywhere they go. And in Indonesia, we have in Indonesia in general, we have kinds of the amulet, which is which they got it from the tablet. They call it as the Quran stabul. Quran stabul. Actually, it is from the word Quran Istanbul, referred to the Istanbul in Turkey, in which some of the Muslim cleric, they have the small Quran with a very small, which is very small, that in which they can use it in their as a necklace, as a necklace, and they get it from the Istanbul in Turkey. But later they call it as the Quran Stabul. And then interestingly, when I went to Berlin with Shahiran, I remember that we stopped by one of the Turkish mosques in Berlin, and then we found it in that mosque. They sell the same Quran as we usually have it as we call it as Quran Stabul in Indonesia. So the point is then they encourage, motivate themselves to get the good omen, actively by getting the tablet, regardless of the meaning. So at the end, I might say that in the Tafā'ul, for those who has a limited ability in understanding the Quran, but theologically they get the Quran as the scripture, the performative functions of the Quranic text, they prefer to the performative function of the Quranic text rather than the informative one. For the informative one is at the level of the Muslim clerics, but but they do it in the ritual. They emphasize the performative function of it, and the performativity of the text transforms day by day from the as we see, as I say, some of the practice has the basis from the narration from the Prophet Muhammad, but then it is perceived by the Muslim cleric, and then Muslim clerics give it to the mass. At least from these three steps, there are the transformations of the performative functions of the text. The transformations is sometimes based on the text, some are based on the oral, and some other based on the ritual. We can find the transformation in the text. Some we can find the transformation in the oral practice, not in the text. But some we can find, and some of them they don't know the text, they don't say ritual, but they transform it through the ritual, the change day by day. And the last, let me say it then, At-Tafā'ul for the Arabic speaking Muslim community is actually the practice of appropriating the foreign text to the existing structure of language. So the existing language is Bahasa Indonesia. So the Arabic one is the foreign text. And then how could they appropriate that foreign text to their existing structure language? They do it through Tafā'ul. So of course, sometimes we found it difficult to put it at the very beginning. I don't want to say it as a kind of tafsir, because that might be some debate whether it is tafsir or not. But it is. I prefer to say the kinds of the receptions. But it is the way for non-Arabic speaking community to perceive the Quran through Tafā'ul, to appropriate this foreign text. The second is a practical meaning before semantic meaning. So to perceive the Quran for them through the Tafā'ul is more on the practical meaning rather than the semantic meaning, which is the level of the Muslim cleric. And the last, as I said before, they prefer the performative functions of the text before the informative one through Tafā'ul. And of course, the last, before I stop, is actually the end. I left one of big questions, because the big question, the big issues, the big problem is, even though non-Arabic speaking Muslim community in which I did my study, has a limited proficiency in Arabic, so that they prefer the performativity and the practical meaning. But at the same time, the reference of their practice, they consult their practice with the Arabic text, which is actually produced by Muslim scholars who understand Arabic. For example, some of them will refer to Al-Buni, in Baghdad. Al-Buni in Baghdad, right? Some of them will refer to An-Nazimi, who understand Arabic well. So their practice is because their limited proficiency in Arabic, but their reference is actually to the books which is produced by, of course, the ulama who understand Arabic well. So that's actually the gap that I need another research to answer it. That's all, Lien. That's everybody. Thank you so much.